to our students about their first year experience. As you can see, we are recording this session so that if you are live, great, we're so happy to have you here. And if you have a friend or if you're watching this later, we're thrilled to have you watch this at another time when it's convenient for you. Thanks again for joining us. Over the next quick 45 minutes, and it will go by quickly, our students are here to offer their take on their experience in the MBA for Executives program. My name is Joanne Legler, and I'm the Director of Admissions for the MBA for Executives program here at the Yale School of Management. I'm fortunate enough to be back on campus, and our first year students have just arrived, so I'm here to help support them through the first few days of orientation and residency. But through our students who are here today, students who have finished up the first year of their program and about to begin year two, you'll learn a little bit more about our mission, about our curriculum, but also about the details about what it's like to do the program. Things like travel, balancing work, building a community, especially in our current sort of hybrid, half in-person, half remote world. If there are a few minutes towards the end of our session, we will open it up to Q&A, so you can feel free to use the Q&A feature of the webinar and go ahead and put your questions in there anytime that you like. I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves. They're going to include their name, class year, area of focus, location, and what they do for a living. In the tradition of our Friday morning panel of peers webinars, which are internal opportunities for students to get to know one another, we call those POP. We'll also ask them to give us a fun fact, something we couldn't find out about them through something like social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. So introductions will begin. Chris, can I ask you to please introduce yourself to get us going?
Absolutely. Thanks, Joanne, and great to be here. My name is Chris Calby. I'm a EMBA class of 2022 in the sustainability track. I am about 40 minutes south of Yale, so I'm in Norwalk, Connecticut, and currently I'm the global head of operations for a company called Delos, implementing health and wellness technologies into various aspects of the built environment, so schools, hotels, and commercial buildings. There's actually a lot you can find about me on the internet. However, one of my favorite things to do is cook. So I'm an avid cook. I've been getting into the grilling season this summer. So it's been really great to take advantage of that aspect of being around and being home for the quarantine aspect.
Great, Chris, we're coming to your house for a barbecue later this summer since you're nice and close. Grace, can I ask you to go next?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace Dan. I'm Emba class of 2022 with a healthcare focus. I'm located in New York City, and I work for New York Presbyterian Hospital as an internal consultant and project manager in finance and operations. One thing you wouldn't know about me from Googling is that I have traveled to Timbuktu and back. And I'm very happy to be here and give you all some more information about the program.
Thank you so much, Grace. Great to see you. And Jing, you're up next.
Thank you, Joanne, and hi, everyone. This is Jean Chu here. I'm also in the Emba class of 2022 healthcare track. So I'm located at the middle of Massachusetts. It's 1 hour, 40 minutes away from Evansville. And I work in the pharmaceutical industry. I work for AbbVie. I lead a group of scientists to support drug development. One thing you can't Google me, can't find out by Google me. And also my classmate, my teammate never believed that I went to Burning Man. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's a great fact. Thank you, Jing. Nathan, last but not least, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Nathan Tribble, asset management class of 22. I am currently the president of Stockpile, a fintech company based in Palo Alto. Probably the most embarrassing thing you can not find out about me on the internet is that I am a huge fan of celebrity gossip. So if you need your TMZ fix or need to know what's going on with Ben Affleck and J-Lo, I can probably give you the info.
Excellent. I'm definitely coming to you for all my Bachelorette scoop. Thank you so much. It's so great to see all of you. I'm looking forward so much to seeing you in person very soon. And we're going to go ahead and get started with some questions that we've prepared for our webinar today. And we're going to take it all the way back to a year ago when you, well, probably more than that, I guess. We'll throw it way back and ask you to think a little bit about prepping for, considering, planting the seed or the idea of even doing an executive MBA. So I'm curious if you tell us about your experience, getting to that point where you said, yes, this is the next step in my career. And wondering if you would be candid and share some of the things that you might have been a little bit anxious or unsure about. So if you can kind of bring yourself back into the Wayback Machine, what was it like to consider an MBA, and what were some things that might have been on your mind at the time? If it's okay, Nathan, since you were just with us, I'll ask you to unmute, and everybody will answer this question because I think people probably have different things. So if you can think back, Nathan, what were you thinking about when you were thinking about doing an Emba way back when?
Yeah, so for me, it was really less a question of if and sort of always a question of when. I certainly played sort of that double Dutch game of trying to decide, like, there's going to be a perfect time in my life to jump in, and like my personal life will be balanced with my work life. And I sort of just had the realization that was never going to happen unless I made it happen. And so not only did I have sort of the compounding change of moving across the country, sort of back to California, but also, switching roles and joining a new firm entirely, which actually gave me a lot of lift because it let me set expectations with my new employer and that sort of thing. But really, for me, it was always just the balancing act of trying to fit in, pursuing a sort of rigorous academic program along with, our professional lives and our families. And so, it's nothing too spectacular, nothing that I think anyone could predict, but it's really just about how to find the right time and jump in there.
Great, thank you so much. Jing, how about you? What were some considerations you were thinking about when you were thinking about an Emba program?
So for me, it's like my career started as an individual contributor in the scientific settings. I was worked for 3 different companies and built 2 different labs from scratch, ground up. So I feel I learned my management leadership skills during the fly, right? And I never got those official business trainings, leadership trainings. So academically, I would really want to go through the entire experience and to learn from the entire business science, then to equip me better for future. Another thing is I think while I'm working at the 3rd company, I feel I'm repeating myself. I'm just building one lab after another. And I feel I reached to some bottleneck and I don't have enough perspectives just from my day-to-day. So I want to get different perspectives from classmates and from professors, then to help me to think through and to just trigger me for the next journey. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's a similar story we hear from others. They're ready for that next step. Grace, how about for yourself? What were you thinking about? What considerations did you have when you were considering an Emba program?
Sure. So I can definitely relate to what Jing and Nathan are saying on both levels of finding the right timing and also feeling like I wanted to elevate my career a little bit. So I had been considering school for many years, but was having a hard time finding the right timing, like Nathan mentioned, and was particularly worried about balancing work, school, and life. But at the point I was out of my career, I knew I didn't want to leave my job to go to school full time. So the Emba programs came along as something that were a really great option to do both and help me kind of in the next steps of where I was in my career, because I've never had formal business training, but found myself working in the finance area of hospitals. So figured I could get some better business acumen and really great opportunities in networking through an Emba program, but continue advancing my career in real time.
That's great. Thanks. Yeah, I do hear that all the time. Students who aren't ready to leave work, but definitely are finding themselves in the spot where they could use that additional training, particularly if they didn't have it in their background. Chris, how about for you? What was it like when you were considering going to school?
Yep. So my experience seems to have been a little bit different. I was lucky enough to actually, there used to be, and I don't know if there still is, a way to kind of submit your LinkedIn profile.
Yep, definitely.
I had done that kind of on a whim almost in the middle of the week. And I had someone from the program office reach out and say that Joanne was actually going to be in New York City the next morning for breakfast. So that was about a month, probably maybe a month to a month and a half before the third deadline. So everyone who's on this webinar is way more prepared than I was, thinking about the EMBA program months in advance. But I kind of had this sprint to study for the EA. So most of our classmates, I think, took the EA, if not all of us took the EA. And so I had been unsuccessful really in studying for the GMAT and the GRE, given the time, really the time you need to devote to those tests. And Joanne was great and encouraging, and kind of just like really kind of enlightening me and the two other people, one of whom ended up in the program as well with me, about kind of what the program was. I quite frankly live in like a low level of controlled chaos. And so the whole organization of, thought process behind going back to school was a great opportunity. Obviously, Yale has a great brand name. The EMBA program in particular was appealing to me because like so many people on this panel and other classmates, it just really didn't make sense to, given the opportunity cost of leaving a current job. And I've been fortunate and blessed enough to continue growing in this career, and it did not make sense for me to leave that for a full-time program. But my experience was kind of whiplash in the span of maybe a month and a half to 2 months. And Yale was really the only program I considered based on my meeting with Joanne. And that also, speaking kind of generally about our class, seems to have been a common theme as well. So thanks.
Well, thank you. I'm so complimented, and it was such a pleasure to meet you. And couple quick things on Chris's points. We will get back to doing these in-person small group breakfasts and one-to-one meetings soon. I'm so excited to get back out on the road. And yes, we still do pre-assessments. If you have not submitted your LinkedIn profile or resume yet for a pre-assessment, I hope you'll do so. One of our team members will get back to you and invite you to an opportunity, perhaps for a phone call or to come to a webinar or to come to one of our small group events. And I hope to see you out there in your hometown once things start to open back up again. Thank you all so much for your candor and letting us know. And like Chris pointed out, you could find us at any point in your journey. Perhaps you're watching this, in January or February of 2022. And if you're watching it live right now, you are one of those people who's a little bit early on in the process and ahead of the curve. And we're happy to talk to you at any point in your journey. And that's what we're here for. So don't be afraid to reach out. Guys, going back to thinking about this time last year, our first year students are now in orientation and residency. A year ago, you were sitting in those seats or you were participating virtually. So we're going to talk more about what it was like to start the program in COVID. But if all of you could go around and talk a little bit about preparation. When you finally got sitting in a seat, whether it was at home or here in Evans Hall, what did you feel particularly prepared for when you were sitting here going through orientation and residency? And what came as a surprise to you? So I'll go to Grace first, if you don't mind. And if you can hearken back to those days a year ago, what were you absolutely like, yep, I'm ready for this. I read all about it. And what might have come as a surprise? And if you just have one answer, that's totally fine too. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts from yourself a year ago.
I was pretty nervous about balancing work, school, and life going into the program. So I was aware that something I needed to prepare for. And there is pre-work ahead of residency in year one, where you get a little bit of the flavor for what you might be in for. And so, I thought, okay, I got this. I'm doing the pre-work. I'm getting through it, balancing it with trying to get a little summer vacation and trying to get through some busy times at work with the pandemic going on. So I felt prepared to work hard. What I wasn't fully prepared for was being back in a true learning environment where you are engaged in conversations. There's differences of opinions, sometimes really strong differences of opinions that people don't necessarily veil like they might in a workplace. So in some ways that was a welcome surprise, because there was a lot of honesty and candor and just so much. Last year was a bit of a pressure cooker with what was going on in the world, and translating that to a learning environment that was both, academic, but also social was not that I was unprepared for it, but it was a welcome surprise, and also at times, I don't want to say jarring, but a bit like, okay, I have to adjust out of a work setting and interact with peers and adults outside of a professional environment, and that was really cool. So
That's
yeah.
great. So overall sounds positive.
Positive, yes, yeah.
That's
I'm
great.
adjusting to just switch gears from work to school to work to school, but overall really positive.
That's great. Thank you. Jing, how about yourself? Can you remember a year ago what you absolutely were ready for and what came as a surprise?
Oh yeah, so I'm absolutely ready for for the pressure from both academic and work. So actually, before I apply for an Emba program, I changed to a job that I know will be less stressful from a previous job to just to get prepared to get myself to a lower stress level. Another thing that I was a little doubt but not fully prepared for is I know from myself the experience, I'm most efficient when I meet with people in person. So I'm so worried if the program will be hybrid and how efficient I can be by participate join online and sometimes in person. But actually, I think to my surprise, the virtual setting really didn't get too much into my way, and I enjoyed it. And that's also opened up a lot of opportunities for additional elective classes. I know you guys are going to talk about later, but that's online settings. Then we can really join some interesting classes during the during the week time. So, so we are not limited by time. Another part is surprising. It's like how much support I got from the classmate and how much different perspectives I learned from people from different backgrounds. So that's really amazing. Yeah.
That's great. I love that. Nathan, how about you?
Yeah, so I did sort of the opposite of Jing and actually took on a new role that was quite a bit more complex. So in terms of sort of clearing things out of my personal life first, that was a kind of a strategic fail on my part. But you know, because I didn't get a chance to travel, I was in California, you know, and so the travel restrictions precluded me from making it to Residence Week and then sort of ultimately most of the year. I actually had adjusted pretty early to the sort of working remote life, and so the classroom facilitation ended up being you know, kind of a real advantage, right? And one of the things I'm looking forward to this year is actually sort of meeting my classmates in person and making the jump out to New Haven. But not having to travel last year actually gave me some time back and a way to sort of capitalize on that time. And turns out it's a lot harder to get cold called when you've got the Google machine at your fingertips, but you know, that ended up taking a lot of the fear and concerns away from class preparation. But I think, you know, really the program did a great job of sort of getting us the material early and sort of laying out for us what we could at least expect. We talked about the stress curve, for example, as well as the sort of just the class materials. So you have a pretty good sense going into it what you're going to get into, and you know, it doesn't require a whole lot of sort of external preparation to be ready to go when class time starts. So you know, I think that's the benefit of having an integrated kind of curriculum and a program that's thought through from beginning to end. So
yeah, it truly is. And I can give a shout out to our programs office teammates who are on the ground kind of doing all that preparation work for you to be here and then supporting you while you're here each weekend as well. Chris, how about you? What did you feel particularly prepped for and ready to hit the ground running on, and what came as a bit of a surprise to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we've kind of touched upon these two things. So I was a medieval European history major coming out of undergrad. So I didn't have like any background in anything business. I was definitely nervous about that. And it was interesting because coming in, you're taking, you know, the first classes are a probability, which I've never taken, statistics, which I've never taken, marketing, which I've never taken. And so there was definitely an aspect of like having to learn. But then, like, as Nathan kind of alluded to, I felt very prepared in understanding what I was up against. And that speaks to kind of the way that you get onboarded into the program, which I was extraordinarily thankful for. The one thing that that people do talk about, especially the first week, is kind of this imposter syndrome aspect. So our class is filled with an incredible amount of really talented people. If you just read the face sheet for the class below us, who again is like filled with a ton of incredible people. And the thing that I struggled with most was, oh, I don't feel like I belong here. And then you start getting the grades back from your first kind of couple classes, and my overarching feeling was like, oh, I can hang, and that kept happening, and it continued to happen, and kind of gets to the point where, even at halfway through, so through the first year, there's still a little bit of that aspect that's still there, and then you just keep continuing to prove yourself day in and day out. And so it's been something I ended up being very nervous about, but it's a constant reward. I'm To be quite honest, like during undergrad, school was never like really my thing. And so now to be really excited about getting grades back is a really weird phenomenon, because every time I get a grade back, it's like, oh yeah, you can hang. And it's a very rewarding feeling.
And building your confidence as well. I talk a lot about that with prospective students, that this can be a huge confidence booster, both in the program as a student, and then when you're bringing all this great stuff back to work. Nathan, I know you have not made your way to campus quite yet from California. COVID really messed us up last year in terms of being allowed to have folks to campus and travel restrictions. But I know you're making quite a commute to be here all the way from California. And of course, our program is pretty diverse geographically, from Maine to Georgia, Texas, Illinois. We've got 3 people from Michigan and 3 people from the state of Washington in the first year class, as well as folks from the West Coast. So can you talk a little bit about your eventual strategy and whether or not the location of SOM played a part in your decision about where to eventually apply and enroll?
So with regards to the second question, I'm not sure that the location played a part. I was also one of the folks for whom sort of Yale was the only program I applied to. And so I was fairly committed. I actually had also worked at Yale for some summer programs years ago, back in 2005. So, I had a sense of the campus and the location. As far as the travel, in my previous role at my previous firm, I was, a power traveler for sure, on multiple flights a week, pretty much every week throughout the year. So I was pretty comfortable with it. And now that that's slowed down, it's actually kind of exciting to sort of get back into it, and, making the time and coordinating and making sure you have a routine is really going to be sort of everything. But for me, it's not a big deal. The fact that I can actually still attend a program at Yale while living in California is, incredible enough and worth it enough that, even if I felt inconvenienced by the travel, it's worth it. So
Yeah.
That for me, it's really, I know some people are kind of dread travel in general, but I'm not one of those. So it's hard for me to relate to the struggle associated with it. So.
Fair enough. Well, I can't wait to meet you. Looking forward to seeing you in just over a week. Jing and Grace, you guys are much closer. So Jing, I know that you are outside of Boston. How do you get to campus, and what has that been like for you over the year? And just to remind folks, this class was able to come in person. We then sort of had to shut down when things went a little sideways with the pandemic last fall, but then we had you back to campus in the spring. How did you figure out your commute?
So for me, it's like a commute is never a hurdle for me. It's a 1 hour, 40 minutes drive from my house to campus. And a funny fact is during the application period, before I got the offer from Yale, and I only applied Yale like Nathan as well, I'm also purchasing my house during the same time. I was like, instead of getting closer to Boston, let me get closer to Yale. Yeah, so that's that part. For me, even during the pandemic year last year and the hybrid model, whenever Evans House open, I will just drive down to the campus. There's no traffic. And the parking, everything is very convenient. So, and myself is in those type, don't mind driving for long hours. So 1 hour, 40 minutes one way is it's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Jing. So you were a driver. Grace, you're from New York City. Did you take advantage of public transportation?
I sure did. I have I've gotten to campus in many different ways. I have driven myself. I've commuted with classmates, which is actually really fun because you get to know your classmates really well, especially if you get stuck in 95 traffic. And I have also taken Amtrak and the local commuter rail Metro North, all of which are great options. I started coming in on Thursdays to take advantage when we were at campus of spending more time with classmates. Which was really nice. And it's pretty easy to manage if you're in the tri-state area getting to campus after work on a Thursday. The other great thing about taking the train when I did that is some built-in study and reading time or built-in work time as well. So all good options. And I'm definitely looking forward to being on campus more in year 2.
Great. We're looking forward to seeing you, Grace. I'm going to switch gears. We've kind of danced around the topic of COVID and the pandemic. And Chris, I'd love to get your take on, starting the program in July of 2020, just a few months really after the start of what became the pandemic. What was it like to start the program at that time? It definitely was going to be different. You certainly didn't come in expecting to start in this way. What were some of the thoughts and feelings that you had about starting in the middle of COVID? And hopefully you've got some anecdotes that are you overcame a hurdle or the program assisted in making sure that things were still running really smoothly. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'd love to hear, straight from a student, what was it like to start at that time? Hopefully we'll never repeat this again and it'll be a story you'll tell your grandkids. But yeah, curious what your experience was like a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can speak just for me personally. I and Joanne, I've said this to you before, is that kind of all of these EMBA programs were dealt a pretty terrible deck of cards. And my personal feeling is that the Yale team did an exceptional job of playing the cards they had to the best of their abilities. We heard from the Columbia program and some of our, I guess, same year colleagues, classmates, cohort there, that their program did not receive basically any communication until after they were supposed to start. So I was very thankful. I never considered deferral. I thought the guidelines and stipulations that were put into place were, very, very reasonable and very fair for us to follow. Governor Lamont is, I believe, right, a Yale EMBA, not EMBA, but Yale.
He's an SOM alum, yeah, Emba, sorry, MBA, yep.
Yeah, so we've definitely got a close working relationship with the Connecticut government. My experience was very positive. I never felt unsafe coming to campus. I obviously was blessed enough to be able to drive every time, but I honestly would not have had it any other way. And it was a reality of the situation and the time, and that this kind of our reality and part of something that's going to define our class. But I thought it was a very fair, very straightforward, and very easy to abide by.
Thank you, Chris. In a similar way, Jing and Nathan, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the learning team experience. A hallmark of our program is that each student is put into a small learning team that's curated by the staff. But my goodness, part of that is, we're coming to campus together, we're going to get to know each other, we're going to sit in circles and introduce each other. And for you guys, you didn't have that experience, in part because we weren't able to really gather even on campus in small groups. And then some of you were remote. So Nathan and Jing, I wonder if you talk a little bit about the learning team experience. How were you able to bond both in person and remotely last year as you began that part of your journey? And Jing, maybe you can go first.
Oh, yeah, sure. So yeah, me and Nathan's from the same learning team. So I think, and so far, I only be able to meet 2 of the team member in person. So our team, I think, is, I would say, mostly remote team. I think something pretty important, and Professor King will also guide us through the team building, that we have a very strong norm, that we aligned our interests at the beginning, and we be very transparent and open and trust each other. Also, we build communication channels that we meet 3 times a week. So to build the rapport and collaborate on things. Another thing I would say, it's like we're very diverse. So everyone covers different parts of the project and we can learn from each other. And it's a very fun activities. And Nathan?
Yeah, so no offense to Grace or Chris, but I'm fairly convinced, and if you ask most of the members of our team who the best team is, we all pretty much say it's ours for sure. And part of that testament to that is the fact that we met pretty consistently throughout the program 3 times a week for an hour, which is a pretty hefty commitment, and frankly, most of those meetings were 90 minutes to 2 hours, which is pretty hefty commitment, in addition to sort of the classwork. And really, for me, that was kind of wild because I sort of approached and entered the program with like almost a sort of mercenary mindset of like, yeah, teams are interesting, but I'm gonna like kind of do this on my own. And boy, was I wrong, like very quickly learned that there's no way to sort of survive the program without building a strong team relationship and without, sort of leaning on your friends and your teams at times. And so there were definitely times where it's just like work commitments and life commitments meant maybe I couldn't go all in on some assignments and the rest of the team stepped up. And then, when they had things going on in their lives, we did the same for them. So it was really actually, without question for me, our team was kind of the bright spot of the program and of year one. And it was really exciting to sort of meet Jing and the whole gang. So,
Yeah.
I'm surprised at how well it came together online, but it did, and I'll take it.
I'm really excited to watch you guys meet each other in person for the first time. I'm assuming that there are hugs in your future. I'm excited to see that happen. Thank you so much, guys. Kind of moving a little bit into academics, managing groups and teams is one of the first classes that you'll take in the program. So it's a great segue to ask Grace a little bit about her experience in our core curriculum. In the Emba program, it's the same as our full-time MBA students. The first year is a core-based curriculum. It's a perspectives-based curriculum. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience, Grace, in the core curriculum. And then I'd love Nathan and Chris to talk a little bit about how they were able to take advantage of some opportunities last year as well. But Grace, can I start with you? As you know, it's taught, like I said, from this perspective or organizational stakeholder perspective, rather than by function, and it's pretty unique to SOM. What do you remember about last year in your classes? What were some high points in classes you really enjoyed, or anything else you want to talk about?
Year one flew by, so I have to remember all of the things and courses that were fit into the year. I can hardly believe how much we got done. But one thing I like about the integrated curriculum is you start with many of the key business concepts and foundations, but you continue building upon them and then weaving in different stakeholder perspectives as the courses go on. You almost don't realize it's happening until you're in a couple courses down the line and you start to bring in content or learnings from your prior courses. And then we had one jokester of a professor tell us that we weren't allowed to bring in any other content from any other courses. And it took us a little bit of time to realize, because he's very deadpan, that he was totally joking, and that the whole idea is that you do bring in different concepts and stakeholder perspectives as you build upon them. So I almost feel like you don't realize it's happening until it's happening. And I like that, because it's not, if you're focused on the customer perspective, you're not only focused on the customer perspective, you're bringing in other aspects of key learnings. So I really appreciated that. And then I will say also, there is a nice balance of quantitative and qualitative content, which was really great for me. I was new to business course content and some of those heavier quant classes. So I was a bit anxious about those courses, but it turned out to be pretty manageable. And I know Nathan and Jing had a great learning team, but I also had an awesome learning team, and I would not have survived the first year without them. We had a really nice balance of kind of quant and qualitative on our team that really played well off one another, because you do get all types of those contents in the first year. And one more thing I'll say is that I was immediately able to integrate some of the program content into my job, which was something that, and vice versa, of course, which was something that I was excited about in doing a program and working at the same time.
Yep. Great. Yeah, it's definitely, I think, one of the hallmarks of an Emba program, particularly ours, is what you learn on Friday and Saturday, you can bring back to work on Monday. Chris and Nathan, you had a bit of an unusual yet lucky, if there's a silver lining, experience last year. It sometimes can be challenging, although it is welcome for students in the Emba program to take electives at the School of Management, elsewhere at Yale. That became much more possible last year with courses all online for the most part. Chris, what did you take last year? What was your motivation for even looking outside of the Emba curriculum in that first year?
Absolutely. So I ended up taking 2 electives, and then I'm doing an internship as well through Sci-City.
Cool.
And so the 2 classes I took were Toolkit Agents of Change, which is with Peter Boyd. Absolutely fantastic class. It was on Thursday night, and it was actually specifically designed for people to come in early that night. It's a 3-hour class, but it was absolutely phenomenal. Would highly recommend that class to anyone. The second one, which I was able to take remotely, which I actually am going to try and, since I live so close, hopefully take advantage of being there in person later this fall, was a course called Leading Small and Medium Enterprises with AJ Wasserstein. And it was by far and away my favorite class that I took during the program. Very fortunate to have that opportunity. And there's so much that's offered, whether that be the law school or the forestry school. There's so much that you can take advantage of that, the Emba program really allows you to, I'm going to say, like, play to your strengths, but to kind of search for your interests and be able to take advantage of stuff throughout not only SOM, but the broader Yale community, which is really cool.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris. Nathan, what were the areas you delved into?
Yeah, so I ended up taking a behavioral economics course as well as a world financial history course. I I think Chris really summed it up really nicely. You can kind of play to your strengths, but you also get an insane exposure. If you throw a rock on the Yale campus, and you'll hit a Nobel laureate or like a leader in their field. And so the ability to just kind of take a class from any department or any program, particularly given the online delivery, was just like a huge positive for me, and something that I'm hoping has some staying power as well. But either way, I know that I'll be seeking out a couple of electives for the program for next year. So it's a really exciting opportunity.
Cool, thank you. We're going to run out of time quickly. I want to leave a few minutes for Q&A, but I do have 2 more questions that I'm hoping everybody can touch on, and they're sort of a bit more rapid fire. When you're thinking about entering the second year, of course, you'll start your area of focus courses and other things that make year 2 very different from year 1. But what personally are you looking forward to? Year 1's behind you, you've got it under your belt, you've had a little bit of a break. What is on the horizon for you that you're particularly excited about? So maybe Jing, I'll start with you. What are you looking forward to when you arrive in just over a week now?
I would say definitely gatherings, right? Because during our year 1, we are just not allowed to gathering in large number of people. And a lot of our classmates just never get the chance to travel to Evans Hall. So I'm really looking to meet a lot of classmates for the first time and some fun social activities in person. Yeah.
Right, us too, definitely. Chris, how about you? What's looking exciting to you? No, I think we might have lost Chris to a freeze. So how about you, Grace? What are you looking forward to? I'm excited to see you again. It was so great to see you in person a few times this year, but what does year 2 have in store for you?
Sure. So I think there's 3 things that I'm really looking forward to, which is 1, like Jing said, spending more time with classmates and being able to socialize a bit more freely and meet some new people that haven't been able to come to campus yet. And then number 2, the healthcare content. I've been listening to my pre-lectures going into year 2, and I'm getting really excited about the things, the big problems in healthcare that we get to put our heads together around. And then I think 3, just knowing that I can get through it, because when you go into year 1, you're not quite sure how it's going to go, and going into year 2, it's a bit more like, I got this, it's going to be okay. So that's it from me.
Great. I love the expectation and excitement about the confidence that you're going in with. Nathan, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
can't wait to see the team and to meet everyone in person and on campus. I'm not going to even try to sort of reinvent the wheel on this one. It's just very exciting to see everyone in person. So I'm
Well, you're wearing your Yale hat, so your enthusiasm for the program and for the university is palpable. So thank you for that. It looks like we might have lost Chris. Hopefully he'll be able to make it back. Wow, that was impressive. I just said it looks like we lost Chris and maybe he can make it back, and Chris showed up. So Chris, you've not skipped a beat. What are you looking forward to in year 2?
I don't know if this was covered, but November 20th, 2021. No?
No,
Yeah.
not yet. What is it?
Yale Harvard game. I am so excited to beat Harvard. I don't know if I don't think I mentioned this. I was a Dartmouth undergrad, and the one thing that Dartmouth and Yale can agree on is that Harvard is terrible.
Well, I love your enthusiasm for the game, which is what they call it. I heard it's being televised on ESPN this year, so if you can make it in person, great. In the past, when the game has been here at SOM, we've been able to do some fun social stuff with the Emba program, and it's a friendly rivalry, of course, but maybe not so friendly either. But we're looking forward to that too. I'm glad you guys all mentioned the fun social stuff. We spent so much time talking about academics and the seriousness. We do have a really good time, and I'm excited for you, especially if you haven't been to campus yet, to experience all the things that we set up for you to do on Friday nights, including hockey games and trips to the medical library and the planetarium, and walking tours of campus and checking out Maury's Pub, which is just down the street from here. So lots of opportunities for social activities and getting to know Yale as well. Last question, again, a bit rapid fire. What's your best piece of advice for somebody who's considering our program, whether it be about the admissions process, whether it be about something you learned about during the sort of exploratory phase, something you learned as a first-year student? If you had one piece of advice to give to somebody who's sitting where you might have been sitting 2 or even more years ago. So Grace, let me start with you. What's your best piece of advice for prospective students?
Just do it. No, I'm kidding. I wish I had talked to my work earlier. I was not even looking at programs that had weekday obligations, like Friday classes. And so I was set to go to a different program. And I, like Chris mentioned, I actually came in the process a little bit later because I did have that conversation finally with work, and they were surprisingly supportive and flexible, which I could have saved myself a lot of time and energy if I had just done that sooner. So that's my piece of advice.
It's good advice. I appreciate that as the admissions person. Jing, how about you? What advice would you give somebody thinking about Emba?
I would say if you think about Emba and decided to apply, definitely visit the campus and join, to shadow the class if possible, talking with the current students. I think different programs really offer different things, and the community and the culture, everything is different. That if you want to commit to a 2-year program and with a lot of time and money investment, then just to see if you like it, and if you like the culture, the people, and the offerings.
Thank you, Jing. At this time, unfortunately, we are not able to bring visitors to campus, but I hope that changes. Things are changing all the time. Somebody just asked about masks in the classroom. The answer is yes, but not in the concourse or outside or elsewhere. So hopefully, as things continue to improve, we'll be able to bring folks to campus. So stay tuned. Nathan, how about you? What's your best advice?
Yeah, I would. I'd actually say just do it, similar to where Grace joked, right? Like, I think there's never going to be a perfect time to fit a program like this into your life. There just isn't. And, particularly not if where if you have any sort of accelerated path in your work life, or you have children. But once you get the buy-in from your family and from your workplace, just don't hesitate.
Yep.
You won't regret it. And don't try to wait for kind of the perfect timing, because I think you'll end up sort of regretting that and miss out on getting started sooner. So that's really the best advice I've got.
Yeah, I would echo what all 4 of you said. The other thing I would say is just take advantage of the opportunities that you've been given. Right, everyone listening to this webinar is thinking about it already. I think that there's some aspect of, at least me, when I was applying, was, am I going to belong? Am I going to fit in with this class? And you're never going to know if you don't take the chance. And that really applies to both the admissions process as
Mhm.
well as all the opportunities that you get while you're on campus. And, do I need some sleep, or am I going to go have dinner with 4 of my classmates while I'm on campus and take full advantage of the limited time that we all have together? So it's just taking advantage of everything that the Yale EMBA has to offer.
Great, Chris. Chris, while we have you, I think this was you. Somebody is asking in the Q&A that you had referenced the approach to the onboarding process. That was tremendous help to you. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, about either the pieces that you can remember being, most helpful, and I can sort of supplement if your memory is fading a little bit. But, when I think about it, I think about the pre-work, the required modules. I think about sort of simple things like the checklist items you had to do. You had to upload your vaccinations, and did we help make that easier? Was it confusing? Again, don't want to put words in your mouth, just trying to jog your memory a bit. So what else were you thinking about?
Yep, I found the onboarding process, as I kind of alluded to, I live in like a state of constant chaos. And so the checklists were very helpful for me. In our class, if I had to guess, I'm probably the last or the lowest person on like the organization scale of things. And having that, and having Canvas, which I've never worked with, and email reminders, I found very helpful. I have no problem with people following up on me and saying, "Hey, Chris, you haven't done this." And just the level of understanding that I felt with regard to testing when we were on campus, and everything that we had to do prior to that. Everyone was very flexible. My job is a little bit all over the place, and I was traveling all through COVID. And so that added a layer, a dimension that was a little bit harder for me to navigate and just keep on top of everything. And so I really appreciated kind of the tools and instructions that were not only iterated once, but reiterated. And everyone was extraordinarily accommodating when it came to things that I potentially missed, or things that may have come in a day or two late. And the program team and the admissions team are extraordinarily helpful in that regard.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. I think we're a little over time. I'm going to throw one more question out there, although there are many in the Q&A. So thank you all so much for doing that. If you have questions we didn't get answered, please feel free to send those to emba.admissions@yale.edu. We're happy to answer those separately. And I can see that, again, there's so many questions here. I wish I could get through all of them. But for the one I think that might help is about your experience with SOM as a whole. Can be a little challenging when you're only here twice a week, or twice a month rather, for 2 days. Have you had an opportunity to either get involved in clubs, organizations, or connect with full-time students, other master's degree students? Again, recognizing that the pandemic year probably made that harder, if not impossible. But if you could unmute if you had an opportunity to connect outside of the Emba program, I'd love to hear about it. And that might be with alums or current students. Nathan, you unmuted first.
So I actually, out of sheer coincidence, a full-time student in the MBA Master's in Public Health sort of joint degree program is an old former student of mine. I was one of her debate coaches. So I actually have had some sort of happenstance interactions with members of the full-time program, but there are also some explicit opportunities to do so. There was a global negotiations exercise that we did that put us on teams with members of the full-time program, and actually following that, I'm still sort of in communication and chat with some members of the full-time cohort. So, in addition to the electives that I took as part of the broader SOM catalog, I think there's quite a few opportunities, but like anything, especially in an Emba program, you really kind of have to make time for it. And if you pursue it, you can certainly make it happen. So I definitely think it's, just another benefit of getting into the Yale ecosystem is taking advantage and meeting folks in the community.
Yeah, and we can do that now that we're back on Thursday nights for Closing Bell, which is our weekly happy hour. So if you happen to come in on Thursday night, you're welcome to join for that. There are opportunities to join clubs and organizations as you have the time, as Nathan said, or as you see fit. And then, of course, the Alumni Network is available to students. So if you are exploring career opportunities, you're moving to a new town, you are absolutely invited to attend summer weekly, or sorry, regional get-togethers as part of the alumni club, as current students, even as incoming students, you might be invited to some of those. And so, yeah, taking advantage of what SOM has to offer, what Yale University has to offer, is just a matter of how you're going to spend your time and how you're going to budget for your time. Guys, we are out of time, speaking of time, so I do want to stop here. Although we had more questions in the Q&A, we have run up at the point where I promised I'd let you go and get back to your lives. Thank you so much on behalf of the Office of Admissions for being part of our webinar today. I want to thank Liz and David, Daniel, members of the admissions team, who are on the back end helping me make sure that this runs smoothly. I'm so looking forward to seeing you very soon. I think we have our picnic on Sunday of this week, so I'm really looking forward to seeing you all there, and thank you once again for your time. And I thank our audience for being here as well. And I encourage you to stay in touch with us. We have some great webinars, information sessions coming up. So don't be shy. And I hope to be in touch about seeing you in person in your hometown as soon as we get back on the road. Good luck to everybody who's out there considering our program or other Emba programs. Thanks very much to the class of 2022. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you soon. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. Thanks again.